The White Templars are a loyalist chapter of the Adeptus Astartes created during the course of an unknown founding. The chapter's warriors are famed throughout the Imperium for both their stoicism and sheer unrelenting fury upon the battlefield, despite the fact that relatively few records regarding the chapter's exploits appear to exist within Imperial archives. One of the few records available in regards to the White Templars is that a number of the chapter's assets, alongside those drawn from the Relictors and Subjugators chapters, would comprise a great task force known as Fleet Sanctus. The purpose of this fleet was to help reinforce Imperial defences throughout the Cadian Gate, a region that, for a time, served as the sole stable corridor of space leading from the warp space rift known as the Eye of Terror. For much of their existence, the White Templars were commonly believed to be a successor chapter of the 7th Legion of the Legione Astartes, the Imperial Fists. This view regarding the chapter's genetic heritage would become so widespread throughout the Imperium that the Battle Brothers of the White Templars would even be invited to compete within the Feast of Blades, a ceremonial tournament conducted by those Space Marine chapters derived from the bloodline of Rogel Dawn. During one such competition, Brother Berengar of the White Templars would face off against Zachariah Kirsch of the Excoriators chapter in a particularly vicious bout. While the White Templar's blade would succeed in striking a savage blow that claimed one of Kirsch's eyes, the Excoriator would ultimately prove victorious. Despite believing themselves to be descended from the Imperial Fists, an earth-shattering revelation would be made concerning the genetic heritage of the White Templars. In early M42, documents uncovered by the Genitoria Logi of the Adeptus Administratum would bring the source of the chapter's gene seed into question. While little else is revealed regarding the true genetic lineage of the White Templars, the chapter, shocked at this discovery, would embark upon a great crusade in order to uncover the truth behind their origins. So from which of the first founding legions could the White Templars be descended from? The first possibility is that the chapter is indeed descended from the Imperial Fists as had initially been believed. While the information uncovered by the Administratum has brought their genetic heritage into question, as stated within the second publication of the 8th edition Space Marine Codex, this by no means confirms that the chapter are indeed derived from another legion's genetic stock. Admittedly, however, there still exists a possibility that the chapter has been misidentified as being an Imperial Fist successor chapter due to a simple clerical error. Such incidents are not unheard of, as the Carmine Blades were initially classified as being an Ultramarine successor chapter, although it would eventually be revealed that the chapter was, in actuality, descended from the Blood Angels. Unfortunately, with so little information existing about the White Templars in general, it is hard to determine if the chapter bears any genetic traits that could support the possibility of them being descended from any one specific legion. The gene seed of the Imperial Fists in particular sports 2 deficient zygotes within their genetic stock, preventing those descended from the Primarch Rogel Dawn from developing a functioning Becher's gland or Susan membrane. With this in mind, one would assume that the White Templars would have also sported such genetic flaws, especially with how long the chapter's warriors believed themselves to be of Dornian stock. But since no records appear to exist concerning the chapter's genetic flaws or lack thereof, one cannot rely on attempting to determine any unique biological characteristics that may manifest within the chapter's warriors. The only first founding legion that could be truly ruled out as being a potential primogenitor for the White Templars with any degree of certainty is that of the Space Wolves, due to the Space Wolves, prior to the introduction of Primaris Marines, siring only a single successor chapter, the Wolf Brothers. However, this chapter would eventually be driven to extinction due to the gene seed of the Space Wolves mutating to such an extreme degree that only those native to the world of Fenris could survive the implantation process, rendering the Wolves utterly incapable of creating any further successor chapters. The only other first founding legion that could, if purely from a logistical standpoint, be ruled out as being the potential parent legion of the White Templars would be that of the Salamanders. This is mainly due to the fact that out of all the Loyalist legions, the Salamanders were exempt from dividing their legion following the introduction of the Codex Astartes, and thus, from an official standpoint, have no successor chapters. Despite this, a number of chapters are speculated to be Salamander successors, though this has yet to be confirmed. Should the White Templars be descended from a legion other than the Imperial Fists, the most likely candidate for their primogenitors would be that of the Ultramarines. This is due to the fact that out of all the first founding legions, the Ultramarines, as the single largest legion during the course of the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy, combined with the stability and purity of their gene seed, would go on to establish the greatest number of successor chapters. However, there is an equal chance that the chapter could have been created utilizing Dark Angel, White Scar, or the genetic stock of another legion entirely. So if the White Templars are not descended from the Imperial Fists after all, then what could have caused such a glaring misidentification? The first possibility in this regard was that when the chapter was initially founded, the appropriate records were misfiled or incorrectly completed due to a number of clerical errors. But the second possibility concerning the chapter's genetic heritage being brought into question could be due to the fact that the White Templars were indeed intended to be an Imperial Fist successor chapter. Each chapter of the Adeptus Astartes is required to send roughly 5% of its gene seed stocks at regular intervals to the genitors of the Adeptus Mechanicus as part of a tithe. These genetic tithes are then screened for signs of physical mutation or corruption before being deposited within the gene vaults of Terra, creating a stockpile of genetic material which can be used to either rapidly replace losses incurred by a chapter or for the founding of an entirely new chapter. However, it would appear that a portion of the gene seed stocks submitted by the Imperial Fists are not derived solely from the genetic template of Rogel Dawn. While such a possibility may seem unlikely, there is a precedent for such an accusation. During the events of the War of the Beast, the entirety of the Imperial Fists chapter would be destroyed by the Orcs, rendering the chapter extinct. However, thanks to the efforts of Maximus Fane, the then chapter master of the Fists Exemplar, the Imperial Fists would become re-established, with the gene seed and warriors of multiple Imperial Fist successor chapters being utilized for this purpose. Those chapters that donated their assets towards the revival of the Imperial Fists would include the Fists Exemplar, Crimson Fists, Black Templars, Excoriators, and the Soul Drinkers. Of these 5 chapters, it would eventually be discovered that the Soul Drinkers, as detailed within the novel Phalanx, were not of Dornian heritage. The sanguinary priests of the Angel Sanguine chapter would conduct a series of tests upon the genetic material of the Soul Drinkers in an attempt to determine whether or not the chapter's reason for turning renegade was due to their gene seed being tainted or corrupted in some way. The Angel Sanguine would discover that the gene seed of the Soul Drinkers was derived from an entirely different source, which Gethsemar would reveal to the Soul Drinkers chapter master Sarpedon with the following quote:
"I am saying that Rogel Dorn is not your Primarch. I cannot say who is. The sanguinary priests have yet to complete their discourses on the matter. But Dorn's gene seed is among the most stable and recognizable of all those among the Adeptus Astartes, and there can be no doubt that the Soul Drinkers do not possess it. That is the news I came to the Phalanx to deliver. That is why the Angel Sanguine sought a place at this court."
With this in mind, it's possible that the White Templars were established with the intention of being an Imperial Fist successor chapter, only to have been created utilizing the genetic stocks derived from those members of the Imperial Fists that had originally been members of the Soul Drinkers chapter. While this would explain the increasing doubt behind the chapter's genetic heritage, the odds of this occurring are, admittedly, astronomically low. In addition, if this were indeed the case, then wouldn't have such discrepancies been detected by the Adeptus Mechanicus? The only reasonable explanation in this regard is that the Mechanicus do not cross-reference gene seed types with that of a chapter's primogenitor Primarch, and seek only to record the purity of the gene seed itself. Regardless, perhaps the White Templars will find the answers that they seek during the course of their crusade. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.